Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast, where we share strategies and support for artists to thrive.
We know that the art world can feel like a lonely place, and we want to provide a network of support, impactful strategies, and an abundance of encouragement to help you grow your authentic art career.
We're your hosts. I'm Jamie Smith.
And I'm Kaylan Butine, and we are also the co-founders of the Thrive Together Network, a community of female and non-binary identifying artists and artists who are caregivers.
We truly believe in community over competition, and we're so glad you're here. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Kaylan Butine, and my favorite planning tools are Asana and my shared Google Calendar.
I'm Jamie Smith. I'm your other host, and my favorite planning tool is our Thriving Artist Map we created. And it's the first year of using it, but it really has helped me a lot. And you may have guessed this episode, we are chatting all about planning and specifically about planning out your week. And we know that artists, typically will get a bad rap of being stereotyped as scattered, unorganized, unprofessional. And you may have realized through listening to our podcast, or maybe you've been part of our community or you are part of our community, we are proud Type A artists. We believe in the power of intentional planning to grow and maintain your art career. And we believe that it's a business. So we have to have some systems in place. So we really wanted to take this time to talk about systems. We know that you may have heard of some magical unicorns that don't have to plan and organize as artists, or they may have a manager or an agent or a gallery who handles it for them. But that's not typically the norm. We actually don't know any artists like that. We know a lot of artists, and it's all of us doing our best, making plans every week to keep going.
Well, and maybe all of us are going to become those magical unicorns, but it takes a lot of work and organization to get there. So we wanted to share some quick and easy thoughts today on planning your week, setting up your week, and we're going to share a bit about our own sort of planning tools and how we think about getting ourselves set up on a week-to-week basis. So there are 4 steps to our system. Number 1 is have a planning routine. Number 2 is look at your boulders. Number 3 is fill in the pebbles. And number 4 is have a closing ritual. So I'm going to start us off with number 1, have a planning routine. Sundays are my favorite day to plan out my week ahead. My ideal Sunday is one where I've just am spending the day at home with my family. I'm lingering over coffee. I read some books. My kids are watching cartoons. We kind of poke around the house slowly. And, we recover from hopefully a couple really fun days, some weekend, Friday evening and Saturday busyness activity. But we're starting kind of to rest and relax and then move our heads towards the week ahead, right? Kind of what's coming next. It's kind of that perfect reset time. So my partner and I usually have a 20 or 30-minute meeting where we look at our calendars. We make sure we're on the same page for who is going to be where, sort of who's managing the kids, all that kind of stuff. We use a shared Google Calendar, just a digital Google Cal that is available on, your smartphone. We make sure that it's up to date with all of our appointments. We make sure that his calendar is syncing with my calendar. We have multiple work and family calendars on there. So we kind of just check and make sure, okay, this week you have that meeting that's going to flow into family time here. We kind of go through each day and talk about it. And at that time, I'm also filling in my paper calendar. So I love having the digital version, but it really helps me process my week if I'm writing those things down in a paper calendar as well, that I then kind of use throughout the week and look at. I'm kind of oscillating between both of those tools. And this Sunday planning session for me usually goes on to after we've set up our week and talked through, so I know what my days are going to look like. I might move on to some meal planning. I might text my neighborhood daily duty friend, Chelsea, who I share carpooling activities with. And we just like make sure we're on the same page with who's picking up the kids when. I might go through all the piles of school papers that the kids bring home, like permission slips. Is there anything I didn't send money for, right? Kind of, it's like my admin, domestic, home, work, life hour where it all blends together. And I got to make sure that everything is in sync and on the same page. So once I wrap my head around what our week is going to look like, I may even take Sunday afternoon to, move on to some meal planning and prep, going to the grocery store or, kind of figuring out how to set up my week. So I love this time. I feel like so much more settled and content when I have a Sunday like this, which doesn't happen every week, but it's kind of my ideal, as I said. So Jamie, I'm wondering what your planning routine is. That was mine. I know it's a big one, but I wear many hats and it takes a lot of effort to plan and do all the things.
I was going to say that maybe we should have started with Kaylan's home life is 3 young children and a partner and 2 working partners and
an entrepreneur and a community.
So there's a lot of moving parts. There's community, there's art making, there's all those things. So I'm in a simpler time of my life. So it's me and my partner and our dog. And so that kind of allows me to, I'm more independent, I guess I'd say. I have less people, needing to know my calendar. So I actually like to do things on the Friday. So I prefer to close my week, taking that 30 to 90 minutes to kind of do that at the end of the week, because I prefer Sunday to actually still be a day off. So I really like the idea of, I set myself up on Friday so that Monday morning, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then Tuesday we do art and tea, and the art and tea sessions we run all focus on our Thriving Artist map. And we do an admin sort of inventory where we just write everything down and brainstorm. So I kind of use that Tuesday as my check-in of where I thought I was at. Because, some things will have changed by the Friday. So I do it a little bit different. And that Friday kind of shutdown routine is sort of reviewing the things I did get done. I really tried to do that because it's hard to remember all of the work that you do at the end of the week and to kind of celebrate that a little bit. So I typically will write down the things I got done. I might journal a little bit. And then I really look towards the next week on usually my Google Calendar, and will kind of plan out, basically what has to be done for Monday morning to go well. And I'll just do that. Then I will maybe pull a few things that maybe I have to do over the weekend. But essentially, I want to be able to, if Sunday got busy and laziness happened, can I show up Monday and be ready to go? And then I kind of have that buffer of the Tuesday with art and tea to sort of plug really back in on things like that. So a little bit different, but very similar. I do think it takes about an hour to kind of get ready for that planning out your week, to have that session. I've tried to do it shorter, but really for me, it takes about an hour to kind of shut down the week and start the new one.
Awesome. And I love that you are kind of double dipping in where I've laid out these 4 steps as a planning routine being number 1 and a closing routine being number 4, which I do those things at separate times. You kind of combine those into one step. And, I think that's really smart. But also just not what I'm able to do at this phase in my life. So I think it's great that we're offering kind of multiple perspectives on this. So number 2 for how to plan out your week is to look at your boulders. So your boulders are the big things, the big events, the big tasks, sort of the heavy lifting that you'll be doing in the week ahead. Your boulders are your top priorities. So what has to come first in your week? What deadline is like right there looking at you in the face that you have to get done? What are you literally doing that, you have to plan around? Considering your boulders, is really important. And for me, usually my boulders are kind of the top 3 things that I want to get done work-wise, plus the big childcare needs or any other major meetings or events that are kind of happening in the week, right? Knowing your boulders and seeing how they're sitting in your week, kind of being able to say, okay, there's 3 boulders on Tuesday and 1 on Friday. So that can help you figure out what's going to go in the other days, right? It's kind of a gauge for how you can balance the rest of your week, and know how to create a flow that feels really good for you.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that really helps me in the Thriving Artist Map is that we do quarterly planning, and that's kind of how we lay out the year. So those to me are sort of these big boulders of how what's the next 3 months going to look like. So we have a lot of planning tools in that Thriving Artist Map, and it's the first year that we've had it. And so I have had the first time of having this all in one place, and it's really helped me prioritize my art. I do feel like I can put a lot of other boulders ahead of my art ones. And so the Thriving Artist Map kind of keeps me locked back into what I want to prioritize in that world of mine, because it is so important, but sometimes it can feel like all these other needs come first. So I think it's really important to think about these big chunks, these big boulders. But number 3 I love is fill in the pebbles. So it's basically, once you've considered these big things, there's lots of other priorities and there's lots of other obligations you have in your week. And maybe they're not the most precious priorities, like you have to get them done, but some of them are just, they have to happen, especially with appointments and childcare and all that kind of things. It's like really understanding what is the full picture of your week. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about where you're plugging in these smaller sort of chunks. And I find, especially as women and caretakers and humans, it can be hard to prioritize a lot of self-care. So I can find like my gym time never seems to be a boulder, but by putting it as a pebble, I really want to make sure that I've put it into the schedule. And maybe I don't need a huge chunk of time, but maybe I can like plug it in somewhere. So I think that's really important to think about where are these small gaps to kind of balance out your week so that you feel that your week wasn't all just for other people or for obligations. You actually got some things that you wanted to prioritize done.
Absolutely. And I think too, what kind of creating different value systems when you're planning out your week, what that does is, it helps you let go of some of the guilt of saying, well, I didn't get the 30 pebbles done, but I got the 3 boulders done and, I filled in what I could, and I call that a pretty good week. Like we do when everything is kind of just the same priority, it makes it really hard to know what to tackle. And like you said, oftentimes our art can get pushed to the side. So, I think these middle steps of saying what's a big priority and what's a priority where I hope I can squeeze it in around this other big thing, but if I can't, that's okay. We can't do it all. And so we do have to make decisions, and kind of let go. I also want to remind our listeners, many of you have heard of us talk about the value of buffer time, and make sure you're including buffer time in your schedule, right? This is 10, 20 minutes that you can tack on to a time block or a task that really is for you to wind down from that task. I think of buffer time as, kind of an entry into a new role. So for me, it's like I had my artist hat on for 2 hours and I got to go get my kids. So I'm not going to end my studio time the minute I have to walk out the door. I'm going to give myself 10 minutes in between to like sweep my studio or close off, take a breath, like get a snack, and then go out the door and get my kids, So I think adding buffer time into your week can just help you feel more human. Like give those moments of pause and remind yourself that you're just a mammal walking around. You need to breathe. You need to eat. We can't just be production
we gotta transition.
machines. Yes,
we gotta trade those hats. thoughts.
Yes. Okay, so our final step for planning our week, number 4, is have a closing ritual. I love this one because I think it brings it full circle, and we've kind of shared our different perspectives here, Jamie, about how you kind of do step number 1 and number 4 together. But I do feel like this is something I've learned from you, and something we really try to value in our community is this idea of pausing, of reflecting, and appreciating the work that we have put in at different moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, we've done a good job of implementing this in the community because we have our Thriving Artist map. And we take at the end of these quarters, these 3-month chunks, I've forced everyone to do sort of a brag list, which always feels weird, but it's crazy the amount of small little things, small little pebbles that we get done that sometimes we just forget about. So we make everyone fill in this entire half page of everything that they have accomplished in that 3-month quarter. And we take that time to sort of celebrate. To me, that's a really that is a closing off ritual. That is kind of my quarter. I feel like every week is sort of this chunk, each chunk that goes by, and then it's sort of this whole picture of this quarter. So taking that time to take some pride in that. And then we have some reflection questions around like what people learned and how you want to set yourself up for the next quarter. So all of that stuff I think really adds and helps with mental health, but also helps with just feeling more centered and grounded, that you have control over your life and your schedule, and it's not just obligations to everyone else around you.
Absolutely. Those celebration and centering sessions are really some of my favorite that we do on Art and Tea. They're one of my favorite things to discuss as a community. I think actually, as we're sitting here talking, one of the things that I implement often is a long walk on a Friday afternoon where I'm just kind of mentally processing the week. So I think that becomes part of my closing ritual. I, every other month, schedule massages, and I usually try to do those on Friday afternoons because I kind of am usually burnt out by the time it gets to Friday. I might work on a Friday morning, but Friday afternoon, I want to enter into weekend mode. It's kind of like I need a longer entry into weekend mode, and you need a longer entry into Monday mode,
Yes. A restart.
Yeah. So I think what we want for you is, even if you take 5 minutes to pause and wrap up your work week, put some boundaries around your weekend, right? That's part of what a closing ritual will do too, is say, okay, I am removing the work hat. I am entering into weekend mode. But that closing ritual of 5 minutes of reflection or a long walk or whatever you choose to do to schedule, it's just a symbolism of saying, I've done a good job, but now the work is done and I'm going to go be a human,
I'm ready. I'm ready for a new week. I'm ready to close off this week. I don't even know what day it is today. I'm ready to close it off. And we just wanted to share, if you felt inspired by this episode or feel like you need a little bit more structure, our Tuesday Art and Tea sessions really provide that. I know they do for me. They're sort of this grounding place where I get to put out all the admin stuff that's going on in my head onto paper and chat with other artists and kind of, not feel alone. So our community is thrivetogethernetwork.com, and we have a free trial. So you can always come and try an Art and Tea and see if it works with the rhythm of your week. And it's a great way to connect. And we also are doing this podcast weekly, and if you ever feel like giving us a review, it really helps us feel encouraged to keep going and not just screaming into the void, into the abyss. We do believe in planning, so this episode is important. So
absolutely.
As always, we are here for you. We are cheering you on, and we believe in the work that you are doing as thriving artists.